Welcome back, everybody, to the first ever bonus show with Dr. Kojo. This is the first time that we're doing a bonus show, so I'm excited for this. But it's just like the other shows that we do, but it's just a bonus show because I want to come on here more and talk to you all. And as always, I'm checking from sunny Los Angeles, California, and we're gonna be talking about divorce and the mental health effects of it. But before we get into that, I would love to know who all is here. So the way we do that is by introducing ourselves in the chat down below. Let me know your name and where you're checking in from, and then let's go ahead and get into it. All right, let's get into it. John says it means no matter what you do, can't make them happy. Yeah, we'll talk about divorce in just a second. Yeah, we'll talk about divorce in just. I have a couple of interesting things to talk to you all about when it comes to divorce and why it's such a big deal. It's a big deal, but we'll get into it. So we got Jennifer from Texas. Jennifer, what's going on? We got Kelly, Tricarico. What's up? What's up? We got Brady from North Carolina. Kelly's from Boca Raton, Florida. It's a very nice area. Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Taylor from Massachusetts. We got Alicia from Salt Lake City. Marla from New Jersey. Zenobia from Cali. Riley from Mexico. What's up, Riley? Mashaya from Land of the Ozarks. Tiffany, your first live. What's up, Tiffany from Toronto? Happy to have you here. Chelsea from Jackson, Mississippi, Oklahoma City, Vancouver. Okay, so we have people from all over Tucson, Arizona. Kimberly, I'm happy you're on. Dennis from Canada, somewhere in Canada on the East Coast. Denise from Indiana. Mom and kids with ADHD. Okay, I can relate. Austin from Pennsylvania, actually going through a divorce right now. Okay, well, let's go ahead and get into it. Austin, sorry to hear that you're going through a divorce right now. It's an important topic to talk about, right? And if you all have been paying attention to the news, and if you're football fans, we all know that Tom Brady has been having some issues, apparently. I don't know Tom Brady, don't know his wife, but he had to take some time away from his job, during the training camp before the season started. And he was going through a lot of things, right? And when I looked at him, I was like, he looks tired, right? And I'm not his doctor or anything like that, so I'm not diagnosing him, but he looks exhausted. And divorce I have a couple of stats here for you. But the very first one is that divorce is the second most stressful event that person can go through outside the death of a spouse. Let me put that in the chat. Divorce is the second most stressful life event person. And I spelled correctly or no? I'm not able to spell today. I don't know what's going on. Stressful. There we go. Can't spell stressful for some reason. Make it fakey. But yeah, divorce is the second most stressful life event a person can go through. And let's talk about why divorce is so stressful, right? Why is it so stressful? I think the misconception is when people think of divorce, Lonnie, what's going on? And Demi, we're talking about divorce today. When, let's say you're getting divorced from somebody who has been, stressing you out, and you're happy to be away from them. Now you can date whoever you want, But Alicia went ahead, and Alicia's probably reading my mind. But the reason why it's difficult is because divorce is not just you leaving somebody, right? It's also grief as well, and we know how difficult grief can be. And I know in this community we have a lot of people with ADHD, and with ADHD it makes everything else hard, including grief and trying to recover emotionally, and even how things affect us when things hurt. So divorce is so difficult because not only is it grief, but it's a special type of grief. Like you're grieving somebody who is still alive, and you're grieving a life that you thought you were going to have. And then you have to get into co-parenting, and there's all the uncertainty. And it's very, very difficult for somebody who has constructed a life. Like if you constructed a life and you say, okay, I'm going to be with this person, this is what we're going to do. All of a sudden to wake up one day or, wake up, 1 month, and you have to create a whole new life for yourself. It's a very, very difficult thing. And it's something that it's hard to talk about online. And I remember I made a post, because I don't delete posts too often, but I made a post saying that, parents of kids with ADHD, may be more likely to divorce, right? I got the evidence, from the study, and a lot of people were triggered by it, saying, oh, no, is that the reason why my parents divorced, because I have ADHD? And I wasn't trying to say that. I was just trying to say that divorce, is something that is out there and is prevalent, and we should be talking about it. And I want to talk about divorce more. We're going to talk about co-parenting more. We're going to talk about all these things, especially for people who, like the guy who commented in the beginning, say he's going through a divorce right now. Marisol says grieving the death of a marriage. Yeah, you're grieving the death of a marriage, and it's frustrating. It's also embarrassing too, because you have to tell your family members and your friends, and then sometimes you may have to tell this to people over and over and over. And every time you're trying to explain yourself, oh, yeah, I'm not with so and so. Like, we got a divorce. It can be somewhat traumatic, right? Tyler says, it's not just grief of losing a relationship. It's the stress of trying to come to terms with the fact that the plans you are working towards are right. Exactly. So let me give Tyler the first love of the show, because he put this in very beautiful terms. First love of the show goes to Tyler. Yeah. When you had, think about the last time that you really wanted something to work out. You put a lot of effort into it. You put time, energy, money, resources, and it did not work out. You were probably crushed. And that's how divorce is. Of course, the government's involved, and you may have kids. It's extremely difficult. And I think that we have to talk more about life after divorce, right? Because I had another statistic here that 6 out of 10 people with major depressive disorder who go through a divorce, are more likely to have another depressive episode, right? And these are all things that you may not be able to prevent the divorce, but you can put yourself in the better position to succeed afterwards. Because if divorce is inevitable for you and you're headed on that path, and that's just what you feel like you have to do, and Ariana is saying it's hard to make the decisions leading for right. So it's painful to make the decision. It's painful to go through it, and it's painful to live afterwards, right? And this is why it's so important, if you're going through any of these situations, to really lean into the family support that you have, lean into the friends that you have, and it's so tricky because sometimes it's not somebody's fault. I see somebody saying something about a toxic spouse or narcissist. We'll talk about that in a second. But sometimes it really isn't anybody's fault. It just didn't work out, right? But now you have to pick up the pieces and, create a life for yourself that does not include this person. And if you're doing that by yourself, I can tell you that could be really difficult. So a support system, therapist, if you're spiritual or religious, having the support of a community in the form of a church could be very helpful. And how do you co-parent with a toxic ex-spouse, or at least protect your own mental health and that of your children? So Nessa, this is one of the questions that, thank you for asking this question, by the way. This is a very difficult thing to do. So there's no right way to do this. And it's important for me to say that, because a lot of times people might feel like they're a bad parent, or you're letting your child down because, maybe the other person's not doing what they have to do. But it depends on the child, how old they are. And, kids are smart. Kids are able to figure out, oh, mom and dad are not together. Like, what's going on? So it does depend on how old the child is and explaining certain things to them. But, the child is a priority, right? But you are also a priority as well. Whichever spouse, you are a priority too. Do not forget that you are a human being, and if you go long periods of time and you neglect your needs, that's how you get into. That's one of the ways to get into like a dark situation. And my kids are 2 and 5, are on the way. Okay, are you going through a situation like this, Kayla? And Ashley says, been through that too. Put your foot down. Right. Boundaries are going to be very important, Ashley. You have to let the person you're co-parenting with know, hey, we have to talk. And it's not that you have to talk to that person for 18 years. Like when you have a child, it's a lifelong commitment. It's not just 18 years. Like you're more than likely going to have to be in communication with that person for the rest of your life. But it does depend. There's different situations where for your own safety or for your health, you may not do that. But if you're co-parenting with somebody and it's you're able to make things work, you probably will have to be in communication with that person. Krista says, I got divorced a few years and it's still a mental roller coaster of healing. Right. So Krista, first of all, I'm happy that you're doing the best that you can. But this is a good example because people don't understand that, like, you don't get divorced in 2020 and then in 2022 you're better, right? And I don't want it to be more so of am I better or am I worse? Let it be more so of, oh, I'm making progress. I'm moving in the right direction. Because you're gonna have some good days and you're gonna have some bad days, because that's just how grief works. Matthew says, what's the best way to support a family member going through divorce? Really good question. Really good question, Matthew. And thank you for asking. I'll say the best way to support them is to ask them how they would like to be supported, right? And let's say it's your sister, and you really, really know that she likes flowers after a tough day. In a relationship, any relationship, whether it's you and your sister, you and your brother, or you and a partner, the little things matter. The little things go a long way. So having, let's say, even something as small as you picking up the kids and taking them to her house, or maybe hiring a cleaning person to come and help her out with the chores. Those small things go a long way, right? Because when you lose a spouse, whether it's through death or through divorce, you're gonna realize that and that's why sometimes people get back with an ex who was toxic, or a spouse, because when you lost that partner, yes, they may have not been good for you, but there were little things that that person was doing for you that was actually very helpful. Now you have to do that stuff for yourself, whether it's, putting the gas in the car so that way in the morning you got gas in the car, or running the bath water. It's the little things that sometimes you'll sit down there and you're like, damn, like I'm really out here by myself, so like don't what your family member needs, Matthew, I'm not sure exactly what they need, but don't feel like the small things that you do are not helpful, because sometimes the small things, they go a long way. Go a long way. Nikki says, don't ever give. Oh, well, marriage, it works for some people, it doesn't work for other people. It doesn't work for other people. William says, always make your children the number one. So, all right, hear me out. Well, I agree with this. I agree that the kids should be the priority. But I don't know about having the, yes, yeah, number one priority, but also just do not forget that you are also a person as well. So, like, well, you got to take care of yourself. You got to take care of yourself, you know? And been separated and still going through the divorce process. I don't see your name here, but I'm definitely hoping that things work out for you. Krista says, it's a process. Avoiding the healing makes it work. I completely agree with this, Krista. And this is why avoiding the healing can be dangerous, because if you divorce and you're moving on, right? If you don't address that trauma, it's gonna like follow you around like a shadow. Like it's gonna be there. That's why childhood trauma, like, it doesn't pop up sometimes, or you don't realize it until like you get in a relationship, or until you're much older, and you connect the dots and you're like, oh, this happened to me as a child, or I wasn't heard, or I was neglected, and or I wasn't respected, and now this is how I am as an adult, right? When you don't address certain things, it's gonna like follow you around, and it can make it harder for you to connect with another person. So sometimes the best thing that you can do for yourself is not to even worry about like what's next in terms of like who am I going to date, but just figuring out what can I do right now. Sometimes it's as elementary as what can I do right now to get me from Monday to Tuesday, Tuesday to Wednesday, Wednesday to Thursday, and back around. And then you have to like take it one day at a time. How do you deal with a spouse who lets their mother control everything? So Zach, I would say this depends on the age of the child. If it's a 17-year-old, who's about to go off to college, is a bit different. When the child is, during the more formative years, I think that it definitely has to be a team effort, and putting boundaries in place is important. But I understand that this can be very difficult as a guy sometimes with laws and regulations and custody, So what I would say is do the best, like do your best to be the best parent that you can be, because sometimes there actually might be some things that inhibit you from being the best, father, the best parent, because of maybe what the other person is doing, right? Let me see. Let me just answer you all's questions, and let's vibe out here. How do you repair a relationship that you are currently in? Both my wife and I had unfaithful individuals before we met each other. All right, so Miles, here's another thing I want to talk about, right? So because we know how stressful divorce is, right? If you can avoid it and you want to be with that person, then by all means, let's, therapy, counseling. Let's see what we can do to, like work through these issues. The best time, in my opinion, to work through like relationship issues is before you get into the relationship, because that way you can really see what you're doing, and you can be accountable. But if you have somebody that you're interested in, I wouldn't say, oh, I'm not gonna date you, or let's not get married for 2 years so I can work on myself. No, like you work on it with that person. But I do think that especially if you've been with people who weren't, didn't hold the end of the bargain, right? Then it can be difficult to trust. And self-sabotage is a real thing. I'm not saying that, people shouldn't divorce if this happens or whatever, but a lot of times we may self-sabotage without knowing it because of the things that we've been through in the past, right? And I don't want a situation to come where you wanted to be with somebody, but because of a couple of things you couldn't get through, you just didn't follow through, right? So I would say talking about all of your fears, right? And there's people right now, whether you're watching it live or whether you're watching the playback, there's folks right now who are, in relationships and in marriages with people that they can't really talk to, if that makes sense. Like you can talk about small talk and oh yeah, the Braves won or the Chiefs are playing on TV, but talking about the real stuff, it can be hard to approach those topics. So if you can create an environment where you all can be transparent, that will go a long way, Miles. That'll go a long way. Krista, no problem. Like I've been wanting to talk about this for a while, so I'm happy we got the bonus show in. Let me see. Christine says, I left an abusive relationship almost 4 years ago. I've been single for pretty much the whole time. I've been talking to someone again, and I'm wondering if I'm looking at the world through red glasses or if certain rings are actually red flags. So, Christina, this is exactly what trauma will do to a person, right? So, first of all, I'm happy that you got out of the abusive situation. Congrats. That deserves a love of the show right there. I got like blow my hands. So you got that situation, cool, right? So that's one victory. You have to celebrate that. Now, this is the part where, like I was talking about self-sabotage, right? You may potentially like put yourself in a position to where you bypass people that could be good for you. Like your person could be out there, but because of what you've gone through, there's probably some things that, and I'm not your therapist, it's just, we're just on Facebook Live, this educational tips, right? But a lot of times, when you look back at it, you might realize that, oh wow, there were a couple of things that maybe happened to me that I didn't fully address, which is making it harder to even like trust my decision making. So as you work through that trauma, you can become a little bit more comfortable, right? Like even if you get a little bit more comfortable, it's helpful. But you have to understand that when it comes to, in my opinion, when it comes to dating, which one of us know who is right for us? Like we don't know. That's the whole point of dating, and instead of worrying about, is this person like right for me? I think we should fire people faster, right? The same way you hire somebody to do a job and you fire them if you don't like the job. Dating is like you're hiring that person, you're evaluating to see if you're compatible with that person, if you want to be with that person, right? You shouldn't date to be like, oh, like this person looks good, I'm going to make it work with this person. It's more so of, oh, okay, I think this person could be, cool for me. So now you evaluate, right? So you should open yourself up whenever you feel like you're ready to get back out there. But when you see things that trigger you, or when you see like things that is not going to be healthy for you in your healing journey, it's better to get out there fast, like run, like have your Nikes on or run, because you don't want to go through that cycle again, right? Yeah. So some things in life we only have to go through once. We don't have to experience them twice. Yeah, I love the show for her. Susan says superficial talk. Right, yeah. So I'm not a fan of small talk. Like if we're in an elevator, that little light is, well, that light, the California sun. I'm not a fan of like small talk. Like if you're dating somebody and talking to them, you should be able to talk about like the real stuff. Like what I'm talking about. And I love sports. So I can talk about sports all day, every day. But sometimes we gotta talk about like what's really important. Cindy says, divorce was the best decision ever. I remarried and I can't be more happy than this. Extremely. Oh, wow. Okay. And see, so sometimes divorce will work for people, but even if it was worth it for you, you still have to get adjusted to that new life, I was married to someone who was narcissistic and critical. You said that in past tense, so I'm thinking that things are better now. I'm hoping they're better now. And Nessa says, it's very hard balance to learn being a single parent. Yeah. You have to be very forgiving of yourself, because being a single parent, whether you're male or female or however you identify, it's difficult because sometimes, like, I don't think anybody, I can say that. I don't think anybody like sets out to be a single parent, right? It takes two people to make a child, right? But there's different ways to conceive. But for the majority of people, I don't think you anticipate being a single parent when you have the child, right? So when that becomes a reality, and is this you and your child, you have to be kinder to yourself. Like, you're doing the best that you can, and you're doing the best to not only take care of yourself, but to take care of that person. Like, you're taking care of a whole new person while also trying to maintain yourself. That's not easy. It's not easy at all. Divorce is a new chapter in life. Wounds heal. Sometimes mind is oh, right. Dennis, once again, that's how trauma is. Trauma is like, it's almost like sometimes it can feel like a shadow. Like, you're walking, like your shadow follows you. Sometimes trauma is like that. It's just like you try to get rid of it. It's not going anywhere. Hey, actually, it could be a good time for a water break. Brett. Cheers. Let's get a water break in, and let me answer some more questions on here. Because this is a good time for me to answer questions. So let's go ahead and get a water break in real quick, and then let me get back to the questions. If you're new to the show, this bonus show is just like all the other shows. Like, we take a water break. It gives us a chance to, get some water in, or whatever beverage is your thing right now. So let's get this water break in. Ooh, feels good. Does the guilt ever go away? So, Audra, yes, but it takes time, But it's funny because it's hard answering this question, because if your goal is to get the guilt to go away, then as long as you're feeling guilty, you're gonna feel like you're not making progress, right? But you may, like, Audra, let's say you're working through something, and then the guilt is gone and you feel better. You may 3 months later, you might start feeling guilty again for whatever reason. That's just how humans work, right? So it's like grief, and it's not a linear process. So if you get to a point where you're feeling better, but then you feel guilty again, don't judge yourself, right? And like I know, like, sometimes you just want the pain to go away, the guilt to go away, the grief to go away. But it's funny because when you look at it from that perspective of like, oh, it's either there or it's gone away, that's a little too binary for how our brains work, right? Gene says, I have a son who has schizophrenia and is so worried he will never find someone to love him. How do I address that? He's 30. So once again, like, I think the way dating is set up, dating is already hard, Gina, right? But the good thing is that he only needs one person, right? And there's, at least in the United States of America, I know 1% of the population has schizophrenia. I don't know how many people we have in the U.S., but I know 1% of people here have schizophrenia. So, there's a lot of people out there who have schizophrenia and schizoaffective disorder who could understand them. But even outside of that, everybody's kind of going through their own thing. So I don't think like a diagnosis of schizophrenia would like prevent you from being able to date. And Tony says, makes my day seeing the hey, it makes my day that it makes your day that you see my notifications when I go live. Like, I really like the live format. And yes, this is the topic for today. Thank you, Kendra. I appreciate it. And Theresa, yes, your comment can be seen. And this divorce almost feels like I lost pieces of myself when he left. Right. See, and that's the thing. Like, you have to understand that anytime you've been with somebody for, honestly, let's say you've been dating somebody for 6 months, you're going to start taking on some of their energy, their behavior, some of the words that they use. So if you've been with somebody for a while and you're married, and then you leave, or they leave, like, it's going to feel like you lost pieces of yourself. And a lot of times when you go through a situation like that, you might look at it as like it's a failure on you. You start to judge yourself, and you're like, oh man, like, like, can I ever get this thing done right? Because confidence comes from repeated achievement, right? Like, as you do things over and over with success, you start to feel more confident, right? So, somebody like Tom Brady, who we're talking about, I think he has like 7 Super Bowl rings, hundreds of millions of dollars. His wife might be richer than him, so she's super rich, right? But this is his second marriage. So if he gets divorced, it would be his second divorce, right? So if you've gone through 2 divorces, you're gonna feel like it's not gonna make you confident about finding love again. So, divorce is a real major life event. And I don't think enough people understand how difficult it can be. And you start to tie your identity. Right. That's why I always say after a relationship, it's always good to take some time to yourself and just chill out. Like it's not the best idea to hop on the apps right away, because that's time that you could be healing yourself and put yourself in the better position to do everything. And Hunter, I appreciate you, my guy. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Roberta says, if the most gorgeous and wealthy couple has issues, imagine the rest of us. So, Roberta, that's why I'll say everybody is going to have relationship issues. Everybody, even me. Like, I'll give these tips, but then, like, I have relationship issues too. And I have to, like, figure out, all right, I have to be accountable for myself. Like, how can I become a better individual? Because, like, what is a relationship? Is you coming together with somebody that, you're 25, 20, 30, however old you are, you already have a way of doing things, and you've met somebody, but because of love, you decide to come together and do things as a unit. So you still think this way and they still think that way, but you have to compromise and make it work, right? So if like Tom Brady wants to play football and his wife is like, hey, I need you home with the kids, and he's like, all right, I'm gonna play football and then I'll retire this time, but I'm gonna play one more year, right? They're not bad people. Of course they're extremely wealthy, but one person may want this, another person may want that. And when when two people's needs do not align, that's when you start to have friction, right? Now, if it's just a want, right, it's whatever. Like we all want like what a Ferrari or cool stuff, but the needs are important. You cannot go without a need for too long before you start to have issues, right? And Zach says, recently diagnosed with bipolar disorder. Wife decided to leave me when I was starting to get diagnosed. My world has been in shambles since then. Mother-in-law has controlled every aspect of our relationship, to include my daughter. So, Zach, very, very sorry to hear about this. And, I think that's why it's so important that we educate people about mental health. And, we have to do it. And I strongly believe that we have to do it in a relevant and in a fun and exciting way. Because the average person, like if I make a video about bipolar disorder and I post it on another page, not my page that has all the followers, but I post it on a random page, people, you're not going to watch it unless you either have bipolar disorder or somebody who has it. Like you may need a reason to have it, but we should all be educated on what bipolar disorder is, what a manic episode looks like, how it affects relationships, because it doesn't mean that you can't be in a relationship, but you got to be on the same page. Maybe, your wife has ADHD or something, or maybe she has something, and then you can help her out that way. But when people don't understand what you're going through, it becomes twice as hard, because then you have to not only like live with the condition, but you have to try and explain to that person, and it's taking energy out of you. But you're explaining to that person because that's your spouse, right? And it would mean a lot for them, to you, to have them understand who you are. So this is difficult, and like you're doing the best that you can. I think it's very important to recognize that, but you have to understand that you have to take people completely. Like you can't just pick a person. Like you can't get a person and say, "Oh, I'm going to date the person," and not date their family, or not date their mental health condition. Like if that person has ADHD, well, all right, you have to figure out how to help them out. If they're forgetful, if they're overwhelmed, you have to figure out how to help them out. Like you should be dating off of what you need and how you can help them out. So, I'm rooting for you, Zach. Keep going, and keep living your truth. You don't have to change who you are to appease anybody. And have you listened to another bullet point? All right, so I have number one. Leilani, thank you for saying that. Where's the second bullet point I had? I got caught up and I started to talk. The second bullet point I had. All right, so what was it? 60% of people with major depressive disorder who get depressed. All right, and put it here. More likely to have a depressive episode. All right, and I'm going to tell you what the point of this comment that I'm about to drop in here is, and then I'll get back to some more questions. All right here. All right, so 6 out of 10 people with major depressive disorder who get divorced are more likely to have a depressive episode. And when we say major depressive disorder, this is a bit different from like depression, like, oh, I feel sad today. This is, like diagnosed MDD, like 2 weeks of, 2 weeks of feeling like this for, the majority of those 2 weeks, loss of appetite, loss of energy, like full out clinical depression. That's what I'm trying to say. 60% of people with clinical depression who get divorced are more likely to have a depressive episode, right? So if you have this information and you know that this is you, you can start to prepare yourself. You can't really prepare yourself for like grief and pain, but you can put yourself in a position to where you can say, oh snap, it's been a while since I've gone to therapy, maybe let me go back, or let me get back on my meds. You can help to kind of soften the blow, right? Like the small things go a long way. That's what I've learned. And let me see, Jacqueline, 8 years with the same person, never communicate unless through text, withholds affection and attention as punishment. I got tired of begging for basic and bare minimum things. Okay, this looks a lot like the video that I made, I think last week or so, when I was saying that sometimes you might not be asking for too much, but you might be asking, um, uh, for something from the wrong person, But definitely, like if you've been with somebody long term, if you want to salvage a relationship, I would definitely do everything that you can to make sure that it works. But sometimes things just don't work, and it doesn't mean you're a bad person. Doesn't mean that they are a bad person. Maybe they might be, right? maybe they could be, but sometimes things just don't work, you know. And Nessa says, I think Nessa is giving advice to Kayla, saying, I know it sounds funny, but take yourself out on a date. Do something you love. Go somewhere you feel most comfortable and see how you feel. It's okay to be hurt and sad. The trick is to stop it from consuming you. Yeah, all right. So I like what Nessa's saying here. It's important to date yourself. It sounds so like cliche and dumb, I know, but it's important to have things that you can do for yourself by yourself, right? Like if the Titans are on TV, right? Now when I watch the game, like I watch with my brothers, right? Like every touchdown, like I'll FaceTime them and we'll be screaming and we'll be crying or whatever. But I can watch the game by myself. I can sit here in front of my TV. I can watch NFL Sunday for 8 hours by myself with my dog because I love it so much, right? If I'm dating a lady and she doesn't like football, you don't have to like football. Just let me watch football on Sundays, So when you have things that you enjoy by yourself, it helps you be autonomous. And if you're living in a situation that's toxic, you can kind of like rediscover like who you were, And Zach, anytime. And let me say something about the PTSD and the ADHD combat. Well, all right. First of all, thank you for your service. You're a combat veteran, so just for that, give you love to the show. I appreciate you. And yeah, sometimes, I think I don't think people realize how often we have to update a diagnosis, right? Like, for example, bipolar disorder, people have to wait sometimes 10 years to get a proper diagnosis of bipolar disorder, right? And even with ADHD in women, sometimes people wait decades to get a correct diagnosis. So sometimes as doctors know more, they can update diagnosis and kind of put you in a better position to succeed. So, sometimes we gotta be patient with our doctors. I have MDD. Zoe, is that you? Come here, Zoe. I have MDD. Is terrible. I have about 2 depressive episodes a year on average. That's on medication, but on medication, the depressive episodes don't last as long. So Samantha, thank you for sharing. Zoe, come here. Come here. All right, my dog wants to BS with me today. That's cool. But thank you for sharing. And that's the helpful part about medications. They don't solve everything, but if it can help, if it can put you in a better position to make you feel lighter, then it's effective. And Kendra, I'm trying to get Zoe on the line, but I think she's just trying to get my attention. You know how Zoe is. I grieved after my divorce and got a therapist and practicing self-love now. So this also deserves a love of the show right here. Yee, I love the show for Jennifer. And, here's the thing about being by yourself and practicing self-love. It sounds cliche, like self-love or whatever, but when you're doing that, you're not only practicing self-love, but you're practicing boundaries, right? Like if you follow me here on social media, like I believe in kindness. Like we're gonna be kind to people, we're gonna be respectful, but we're not gonna get played, right? We're not gonna be dumb, right? We're gonna put boundaries in place And anybody who wants to be part of our lives, like they have to respect us. That's like the minimum, right? So when you're practicing self-love, you can figure out like what your boundaries are, because you're not with anybody. So if you don't like it when somebody, if you don't like it when you're on a date and you're about to order and the guy is like, oh, she'll take this, which that's clearly toxic, right? But if you know you don't like that, then the next time it happens, you can say, oh, okay, thank you. I'll just leave. Like once you know what your boundaries are, then all you have to do is enforce them. But it's not that simple as enforcing them, because when you do that, you're probably gonna lose people. That's what normally happens. But if you're not afraid to lose people, then you're able to put the boundaries down, right? Now I'm afraid of losing myself, right? I'm afraid of betraying myself. Like I can lose a person who you were romantically interested in, but because if you lose them, you can find somebody else. But when you lose yourself, it's like I go through that trauma over and over again, right? Uh, uh, excellent example. Okay, I'm happy you got that one. I was 51 when I was re-diagnosed. Yeah, women have to wait a long time sometimes. Having a good support system. Yeah, no, it's very helpful to have friends, like friends that can come over, or maybe they live in Colorado and you're in Texas, but somebody you can FaceTime. Just having people around, that's going to be extremely important for you. It's going to be very important for you. All right. I'm struggling to leave a relationship that hasn't worked for a long time. Don, and look, you can't judge yourself, because like, why do people struggle to leave relationships that don't work for them? Think about it. Just sit and think about it for a second. It's because there's something in that relationship that you're getting that is benefiting you, whether you like it or not. Like it could be toxic and you could be getting disrespected, but maybe you like having somebody next to you when you go sleep at night. Maybe you have that. You like having the extra additional security of a second income. There's reasons why you're still there. So when you realize that, hopefully you can be a bit easier on yourself. Not saying that you should stay, but I'm just saying that there's a reason why you're still there. All right, let me get a couple more questions. I lost myself in a 23-year marriage and I had to leave because it wasn't worth leaving this world. Yeah, straight up. Yeah. And I would, because like my goal is not to get people to leave their partners. If anything, I'm always like, hey, you sure you want to do this? Like, can you work it out? If you can't work it out, cool. But yeah, I would much rather you leave a toxic situation than leave the world. Yeah, by far. Let me see. Thanks for the videos. I figured I had grown out of my ADHD and things got real bad for me after a bit. Learning neuroscience, mindfulness, and these videos help. Didi, for sure. And Angela, well, I'm actually doing a double header, so I'm actually going to be on live. I'm going to do a late night show after this bonus show, and I was thinking about talking about anxiety, but it's ADHD Awareness Month, so I'll probably make that second show about ADHD. But the best thing that I would say is, go back to your doctor, Angela, and see what other options there are. Because if you say regular meds and you're talking about stimulants, sometimes we use meds off label for ADHD, like Wellbutrin, which is a special antidepressant. Because of the neurotransmitters that it helps to enhance, it can help you focus more. Boom, boom, boom. So there's more than just your Ritalin, Vyvanse, Adderall. There's more than that. So I think when people realize that, they're like, okay, like let me go back to my doctor because it's not like the main couple of medications. And Kendra, it was just two. I wanted to get more of people's questions on this one, but I'm gonna have bullet points for the ADHD one. I have something for anxiety, but we'll probably do one for ADHD tonight. Let me see. Let me read this. I was diagnosed age depression. That's when Alex, sorry for your loss. And overwork myself to deal with the pain. Any advice on how not to overdo the work? All right, so Alex, you overwork to deal with the pain. So how do you break it down? Like what's an easier, not easier, but what's a non-maladaptive way or a way that you can deal with the pain that is not like hurting you, right? Because if you're overworking yourself, it could be a form of self-harm. I'm not saying it's like self-harm as we know it, but it's not helping you out, right? So I think, like just look at it the way you grew up and in the foster care system and then what happened as an adult, the fact that you can't hold a relationship is, I don't say it's not your fault, right? It's not a matter of whose fault it is, but you probably weren't in the best position to make the relationship work in the first place, right? So dealing with some of those issues, right? It's like I'm seeing CPTSD there, like having a therapist, having a good support system, having another thing to replace the overworking. All those things can be very helpful for you. Um, let me see. Trying to meet new people at yeah, no, Victoria, yeah, it's difficult, especially like, let's say, Victoria, let's say you're trying to meet somebody before you knew you had ADHD, right? Once you know it and you're aware of the things that are harder for you to do because of the condition, then it can make you difficult to, it can make it difficult to meet people, So I'm thinking that might be the angle for tonight's show. Actually, for y'all who are here, I'm gonna go get my dog out, let her pee, all that stuff, and I'll come back on for the late night show. But we'll talk about ADHD. But what angle should I take it from tonight? Since y'all are here, I'm like, let me just ask y'all. That's, I appreciate you, and even getting to do this here, this right here is becoming like one of my favorite ways to, like, deliver information on the internet. Like, I really enjoy this live engagement. Like, I really enjoy it. I appreciate you. And Danielle, self compassion is necessary, and I've always struggled with this because, like, I've always thought that, like, whatever success I have has come from, like, really working hard, and, like, if something happened to me and it was painful, I'm like, oh, I'm going to use this as a motivator to, like, prove people wrong. But I've been realizing that is this making things harder on me. Like, why should I, like, why should I make it harder on myself? Like, I can be nice to myself the same way I tell y'all to be nice to yourself. All right, so let me see what people are saying. Someone said ADHD, and let me write it. Oh, I'm like, let me write it down, and I just found a ticket that I gotta pay, so I'll pay this ticket on the break. ADHD, keep me friends. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I need to pay this ticket now before I ADHD. Dating in your 30s plus single parent ADHD. Okay. Any angle? Are cool. All right. I got some ideas. I like making a list because every time I make the list, I'm like, all right, I should start doing this myself in my life. Catherine, let me see, Adderall, right. There is an Adderall shortage in the country. It doesn't work as well. Yeah, there are differences between the generics. And yeah. So that's right. That's valid. My grades in life are showing how bad I've been struggling in the last month. I'm also so scared to talk to you about moving. Catherine, I appreciate getting to make this content. Like, it means a lot to me to do this, and there's nothing wrong with being, like, afraid to talk to your doctor. But there are differences in, like, the generics and, like, so, like, if they replace the medication, and like, it could still be like, mixed amphetamine salts, but it might not be the same, and it could hit you differently. So, like, you're not crazy. Like, that's valid. And, like, I just learned about how much of a difference, there are with some of the generics and like, like Vyvanse, right? So yeah, it's a difficult time right now to have ADHD with the shortage. So it's not your fault. This is actually a real thing, right? But it's more so about direction. However, if you're moving in a direction where you're becoming more comfortable to talk to your doctor, I think it's going to be very helpful for you. And nursing school is hard. Nursing school is tough, right? So, like, it's been tough for you. So being easy on yourself, being nice to yourself, especially as we go towards the end of the year, is going to be huge. Other methods to deal with it, besides, okay, all right. I'm seeing you all's questions. ADHD is a bipolar. Okay, so comorbidity. Give me some ideas right here. Yeah, cool. And sometimes I play this game in my head. I'm like, what condition is ADHD the most like? and like I don't have like evidence to say, oh, it's the most like anything, but when I'm making my videos and I'm doing the skits, I feel like me having ADHD myself, I feel like I can understand what bipolar disorder would be like. I could understand what depression would be like. I could understand anxiety. I might not understand, hallucinations and thought disorders like schizophrenia personally, but then that's where I use my experience, being at the psych hospital for 7 years. I hadn't even considered dating, full-time job, 4. Well, congrats on 4.0, paralegal student and single parent of a young child type of ADHD. So I don't think we even talked about this. Sometimes, Kimberly, the answer is to not date. Like if you're at a point in your life where you're doing so much, dating is going to take energy. It takes energy to date. So you might, this might be, a good idea for you. Catherine, no problem, no problem. And you can just copy Kojo as well. I have bipolar disorder, and I really think I have ADHD on top of it. Some people have both. You can have both. I'm not saying you have both, but I'm saying a lot of people have both. All right. I'm so yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about burnout, and then So, all right. I'll give so when you feel burnt out, the best thing to do in the moment is just to be still for a period of time and just first of all do something nice for yourself. Get out, do something that's enjoyable. So I'm telling y'all to go find a dopamine, go get some dopamine. But like I'm not talking about like impulsive sex or gambling or drugs, but do something nice for yourself to make you feel good. And then as you start to feel better, write down everything you don't like about what's going on right now. At some point, you're gonna have to change your environment if it's burning you out. And the sooner the better, especially if you're saying that you're starting to get burnt out. Yeah, the sooner the better. I would say with that. Let me see. It's not more common in females or males. It's last time I checked, I feel like men and women are equally as affected. It's just that women get diagnosed later, but men and women are equally as affected, and the treatment is equally as effective for both. Okay, all right. So let me go get Zoe out, and all right. What time is it? 6. Okay, make sure I'm gonna miss calls. All right, so in 15 minutes, I'm gonna come back and we're gonna go live. We're gonna talk about ADHD. It is ADHD awareness month, so we're gonna talk about ADHD. I'm gonna figure out which way I want to take it, but I got some ideas. So I'll be back. Make sure Zoe doesn't go. No, she's on the bed. She won't pee. She's just, she's being stubborn. That's just what Zoe does. So, Kim, thank you so much. Oh my gosh, yeah, I got a pay ticket, University of California, Irvine. And this ticket too. See, if I paid it before August of 26th, it would have been $65. And now it's $115. So, yeah. All right, so we'll be back on at 6:35 California time, 9:35 on the East Coast with the ADHD video. Let me pay this ticket, get my dog out, and then I'll be back. All right. Cheers. See y'all shortly.